Welcome to the AngelsWin.com podcast, featuring Jeff Stoddard and AngelsWin.com founder, Chuck Richter. And now, here's Jeff Stoddard.
Oh, I love when the music starts on time when I click the button and I'm not just sitting here waiting for something to happen and it doesn't. But here we are. Welcome to episode 42 of the Angels Win podcast. I am Jeff Stoddard, as always, with AngelsWin.com founder Chuck Richter. And back with us for episode 42 from his last visit on episode 40 from the Sporting Tribune is Taylor Blake Ward. Taylor, welcome back.
Howdy, howdy. You guys had to get founder. You had to get the official title when it comes. It's not like, the incredible Jeff Stoddard. And, Chuck gets this whole big blown introduction. And then there's Jeff.
There's Jeff.
Well, Jeff did get his name in Forbes as the director of social media. And I'm nowhere to be named in Forbes, so.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. Forbes reached out to Chuck, and Chuck sends it over to me and goes, "Would you talk to him?" I'm like, "Sure. I'll talk with Forbes."
Yeah.
So that was fun. What was that? 2014? Is that what came
funny.
up? It was like
2015.
You sent it over. It was like the 10-year anniversary or something. So.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, gentlemen, the last time we all got together about a month and 11 days ago, we were prepping for the Angels draft, and the draft has been had. We came away with 12 right-handed pitchers, 3 left-handed pitchers, 2 outfielders, I think 2 shortstops, a second baseman, and a first baseman. There were 15 college players in the draft and 5 high school players. So to give everybody kind of the high level overview, that's what the Angels came away with in the draft. And of course, there was some big movement with the team with one, as Chuck is wearing his Trash Panda shirt, one big Trash Panda that's doing well. And Taylor let us know that a jersey is on the way to be ordered for this guy. So who wants to take it and kind of talk about the draft and our first round draft choice? So
Chuck, you just got to see him. I think you should take it.
Yeah, and I was down there and big media buzz around Christian Moore. He I tell you what, a big kid. And he, I saw him take BP, and of course I was right there when he started off the game 2 for 2 with the walk on Saturday, and he just has that kind of that major league confident spirit about him. Like he's ready for the big leagues. Is he ready talent wise, and is he going to be faced with some struggle? They all go through that, right? But he's got the confidence, I believe, to overcome those slumps that will come his way, those breaking balls that he hasn't seen yet, and change-ups, from good major league pitchers. But I mean, I think the Angels really got a guy that, and as you've seen what he's done so far, a guy that's going to just hit the ground running, so to speak, with the Angels. And I think he's going to be a fan favorite as well.
Yeah, I feel confident. When he was out here in California, he was here for all of 2 days, and he was 8 hours north of me. So I didn't make the trip, hoping I'd maybe get a couple more days out here. But the confidence is evident. I mean, he's hitting above 500. He's got an OPS of 1.7 or something, flirting with a 2.0 OPS. It's small sample, and I agree with you, Chuck. He has yet to see. He's seen good arms, no doubt. He's gonna, even guys that are gonna be in the major leagues this year. But there's a guy that 30% chase rate on off speed during his college year last year. There's a lot of adjustments, and whether or not he's ready, I don't think is a question. I think it's whether or not the Angels are just going to pull the trigger here and hope for next year. We're coming up on August 16th, which would be the 45-day mark to the end of the season, which means he could come up and still remain rookie eligible for 2025. And I could see, I'm maybe on a 51-49 split on that one, if the Angels will or won't, and maybe we can touch on that a little bit more. But definitely, confidence is the biggest thing here. This is absolutely a confident kid, knows he's very good at baseball. The biggest thing with him is just going to be concentration and staying consistent with the concentration. We saw he had a very, very bad game. It was like his third game with Rocket City, second game with Rocket City, whatever it was. 0 for 4, 3 strikeouts, 2 really bad defensive lapses. So that you've got to refine that. You've got to get him in tune. But definitely a special talent. Has a chance. I've carried this comparison kind of for a while, and I think I've kind of compared him to Randy Rosarena to a liking. And it's not, I think Christian might have a tick more raw power, and he's going to be stronger because he's about 2-3 inches taller. But you're talking about a guy that shines in the big moments, because Randy Rosarena on paper is a very good baseball player, but he's not some superstar. On paper, he's a very good player, just not that Ronald Acuna, Mike Trout, Shohei Ohtani type, right? But definitely, and I think that's kind of what I would hope for if at a Christian Moore at his peak is become someone like Randy Rosarena, who is going to chase, is going to have lapses in judgment kind of thing, but is going to shine, and he's going to stand in for. I mean, we've seen it. When he is locked in the way that he has been for the last 2 weeks, and especially the College World Series, this is a guy that I think really turns into something that, like you said, a fan favorite. He's going to stand out in the big moments. He's going to stay concentrated. And if he can stay with that skill set that he has with the full concentration, yes, absolutely. This is a guy is a potential, I'm not going to say he's a every year All-Star, but definitely a guy that could be an All-Star in the future.
Well, let's talk about the potential of calling him up at the 45-day mark. What do you both think is the likelihood that as we end spring training of next year, that he makes the major league roster? And if he's not going to make the major league roster, if we don't think he is there even value to bringing him up here at the end of the season, or just letting him ride it out with the Rocket City Trash Pandas? And for those listening, if you're not following the Rocket City Trash Pandas on X, do. They post some great content, some great videos of him and the rest of the players, so you can kind of keep an eye on this guy. But what do you think? I mean, is he going to make the team next year? And is the yes, no to that the answer to do they bring him up at the end of this season?
Go ahead, Chuck.
Well, all indications, being down there this past weekend, he's coming up. Now, could something change? Obviously, if there's an injury, that'll change. Let's hope not. If he goes 0 for his next 16 this week, maybe
0 for the rest of August and over September.
But I think he gets called up. If he's, there's no way he can sustain this streak that he's on, right? I mean, he's just been pummeling. What has he had? 3-4 hit games already? Does that sound right, Taylor? I think it's
I believe it's, I think you're right. Out of like 8. Out of 8.
And some players don't even get 1 4-hit game in an entire season. So it's phenomenal. And he hits the ball hard. His exit velocities in college were ranked incredibly high, and he's hitting the ball hard here too. And so if he comes up, you remember when Mike Trout came up, he didn't set the world on fire at the plate, right? He showed flashes of what he could do on the base paths, at the plate, in the field. But you look at his first cup of coffee, and it didn't knock your socks off, right? But came into spring training that next year and looked great in camp, and he made so anyway. I think that there's some, I think that there's a good chance that he makes the team out of spring training next year, barring any injuries or issues at the plate or on the in the field.
What do you think, Taylor? Value to bringing him up at the end of this year or no?
Well, I think there's multiple points, and you have to kind of look through it. First off, let's start with this year. This ride of confidence. I think he comes up this year, whether that be Friday or September 1st. And I think those are the two target dates you're looking at.
Right.
In between is fine, but I think those are the two dates you're looking at. I do think he comes up here. And I think the biggest reason, and this is something that kind of dates back to what clubs were saying before the draft, is get him in the hands of Ron Washington directly, immediately. And I think there's sense to that. I mean, Ron has a long track record of working with young kids, especially infielders, and improving and harnessing and improving their game. And I think this is what could be a case for Christian, not only getting a little more concentration from Ron, but also becoming a better fielder, which he needs to do. I wouldn't call him a liability, but serviceable might be pushing it. And that's, in all honesty, I'd like to see him move to left field, but if you can get him in the hands of Ron Washington, that's something. And the quicker, the better. So, I definitely think that Friday is going to be an option. And also, what's he learning in Double-A right now? His development is pretty much sitting right at, I think Sam Blum of The Athletic had an article the other day, and Sam asked him directly, difference between SEC and Double-A. And if you ask most SEC players, they would say, Double-A is definitely superior in the depth and the talent and other things. Christian said it was pretty level field. So what's he think? Realistically, what is he learning by sitting in Double-A other than just confidence and maybe getting reps? And you can get those reps in the major league level, and where the Angels are in the standings and where they are this year, you can develop him and let him make mistakes and not worry about it. It's not a burden. As for next year, he has to earn it. And whether I think Perry Manassian is coming back as a general manager. I think that's the first time I've ever said it very confidently, but I do think that Perry Manassian does come back as a general manager next year.
You heard it here first on the AngelsWin Podcast.
But I think if Perry is the general manager and this regime is consistent in the next year, then I think he can earn it with a little bit, maybe a little less earn it. If it's a new group, definitely has to earn it. And that's kind of my take on next year for Christian. But yeah, I don't see any reason why he shouldn't have a chance this year to at least get in the hands of Ron Washington. And just, like, if he goes 0 for 100, who cares? Who cares? It's going to suck for his career numbers, but whatever, right? He's going to, as long as you can keep him confident, even if he's failing. And you have to get this kid to fail at some point. He hasn't failed ever in his lifetime. So eventually, when he does fail, you have to see where the successes are. Maybe a little bit with the Cape Cod and the Woodbat track record, summer leagues. But he seems to be doing just fine with the Woodbat right now. So I'm not,
exactly.
Eventually, you got to get this kid in a struggling situation. I think the majors are as tough as it is. You could sit there and tell him, "Hey, Aroldis Chapman just threw 105 by you. It's okay."
Right. He throws 105 by a lot of people. So don't.
Max Scherzer throws the best breaking ball you've ever seen in your life. Mm-hmm. It's okay, kid. You can miss on those.
And that's a great point, Chuck. I mean, there is a chasm of difference between SEC Double-A pitching and Major League pitching. And getting to see him face Major League pitching big, but 2, getting to see him learn and adjust to Major League pitching. To Taylor's point, even if, and especially if he's failing doing it, also really important. And the only way to do that is to do it.
Right. Mississippi State, they're in the SEC, right, Taylor?
Yep, they sure are.
Yeah, I talked to David Mershon yesterday. Not yet. Yesterday? No, Sunday. And and I asked him, who were some guys that you faced, some tough guys that were drafted in the higher rounds that you had faced, and he mentioned the kid from Arkansas that was drafted.
Smith. Well, and Chase Burns was at Tennessee the year before.
Right.
I think just the way that you look at this is SEC players, no doubt they're very talented, but why, if there's 25 guys on an SEC roster, why aren't 25 guys getting drafted? It's
sure.
The depth. It's just the depth. It's not a lack of talent. It's not a lack of how good you are or how consistent you are, but you're young. and the depth. You could face a kid that on a Wednesday night that's throwing 86, maybe not in the SEC, but the depth between SEC and AA or high A baseball. I think you could have tossed Christian Moore in AA. I wouldn't have questioned it. You could toss Nick Kurtz and Chase Burns and Hagen Smith and Travis Bazana into AA and JJ Weatherholt into AA. I'm not gonna blink. I'm not gonna think about it. It's good for them. It's aggressive, but they're ready for that. They're talented enough for that. But when you get down to David Mershon, as you mentioned, he's a sophomore, right? He's 21 years old, but he's a sophomore. He's got 2 years of college ball under his belt. Is this kid ready to face a 26-year-old who could be a major league? He might not be a good major leaguer, but he's got the experience. He's got this. He's a better pitcher than what he's seen ever at the SEC. And he might be a major leaguer, might not. But that's the thing is, when you're going third time through the order or something, and this reliever comes in, this pop in 97, that you haven't seen this kind of movement on a fastball, and that's right. Not still, staying with the pace. The pace of the game is faster in AA. The depth is different. So there's a trick to it. I do want to ask you, Chuck, David Mershon. From the minute I saw him, slapped down a David Fletcher, David Eckstein comp, and I am very adamant against not putting an Angels player with an Angels player as a comparison. I want to move. I want to switch the race of the player. I want to switch the team of the player. I'll even switch the position of the player if it's an offensive profile. But David Mershon, for me, completely fits the David Fletcher, David Eckstein mold.
Yeah. And Chuck, before you answer that, just so I could kind of level set for those listening if they don't know, David Mershon, 5'8", 175-pound shortstop out of Mississippi State. So that gives you a little idea of the size of the guy. So Chuck,
and
go
can
ahead.
I just run one thing by this just real quick? Switch hitter. So he is a little different from both Davids. Definitely a David, fits the mold there, but plays above the tools, gritty defender who can play shortstop. We'll see what the pace is like. But plays above the tools. He's focused on the barrel. He's not going to hit a whole lot of home runs, Chuck. And the other thing, he signed for, he was an 18th round pick, but the financial bonus that he received was about 5th round value, just to give you a little bit of a heads up on that. But Chuck, I'm really curious about this.
Yeah. So one of the questions were asked, who were some of the players growing up that you kind of modeled your game after? And, and his response was like, I'm just myself. I just try to play hard. And then I told him, I said, well, a couple of us have talked to him, like we see your game and we see a lot of like David Eckstein in you. And he's like, wow. And he actually was flattered. And then I said, 2-time world champion, not too shabby. And, we talked about his versatility on the field because he played center field for the first time in years. You can't even find it online anywhere where he played center field. It's because it wasn't until like high school, way back in the day, right? And so he's a guy that is willing to do whatever it takes, kind of like a Sean Figgins, play around the field and excel at each position so that he can be of value to a major league ball club. And he's really fast. I saw him play in 2 games there and super fast. I mean, way faster than, David Fletcher, David Eckstein. Puts the ball in play. Heck, he hit a ball that was caught at the warning track. The guy had to leap to catch it. I wouldn't say he robbed it, but that ball was gone in Anaheim with that yellow line. That thing was way out. I mean, and so he's got a little pop. He's not going to hit, for a ton of power, as Taylor said, but he could pop a few out. He's a smaller guy. He was the only guy I interviewed that was my height. And so I was looking up to everybody else, especially Kaden Dana, who maybe we'll get into later. But yeah, I think he's going to be a grinder, like a scrappy guy that just will do whatever it takes. And I'm looking forward to. I really hope he makes the big league club with the Angels.
That's cool. All right, so 20 rounds of picks. We've talked about Christian Moore. We've talked about David Mershon. I don't want to go through all 18 other players, but are there any players that either of you would like to call out or highlight that you've got, kind of keeping your eye on that you think may be good in the short-ish term, say the next, 2 to 3 years for the ball club?
Just as a heads up, if you go to AngelsWin, look out draft recap.
Yes.
All 20 picks or all 21 picks are covered. So,
Yes.
Chuck, you mind if I jump into this?
Oh, no. That's why I said the floor is yours, Taylor, on this one. Yeah.
Well, I think purely alone on pure stuff, you could have thrown Ryan Johnson and Chris Cortez in a AA and chanced them in the major leagues this year. On stuff alone. I don't think they would have been successful by any standard because I don't think the command is there. And Ryan Johnson, I have a lot of questions about. But I think they're major leaguers. Undeniably major leaguers, in my opinion. If they stay healthy and everything like this, I absolutely think they are major league relievers, and they could be tomorrow. I think both of those guys are shut down for the rest of the year until instructs, because Ryan Johnson threw over 100 innings this spring. Chris Cortez had like 60, but they were very high lever. It was high impactful arm, useful. They used him a few times over. So I think both of those guys are shut down from what I understand. Chris Cortez, it's a sinker slider combo. The sinker is a power sinker in the upper 90s, can hit 102. I don't think he has the 103, 104, 105 in the bag the way that Jordan Hicks does. But the sinker plays very similar to what Jordan Hicks does, and also the breaking ball. So if they start him and he ends up being very similar to Jordan Hicks as a starter, which I know mixed results. I know he's been a league average starter performance-wise, but I still think that's value. Very good. Ryan Johnson is a total throwback to Dan Quisenberry. Complete throwback to 70s, 80s guys. It is the funkiest, oddest, most unusual, and will not work mechanics you'll ever see. But he does. And I want to see what I think the thing with him is he threw a lot of strikes. I want to know what the quality of the strikes are once he gets into pro ball a little more, because he had that slider and guys were flailing at it, but it's landing in the left-handed batter's box. So I want to see if higher level hitters can lay off of that pitch. And if he can, then and he stays in the strike zone, sure, you can start him. I don't think the arm action is going to let him start, but give him a chance. And there's no reason not to at least give him the chance in development if you're going to give him a proper development. Let him get the innings. Go let him get the innings. Go let him throw strikes and work on strike throwing. But I think as a fallback, Ryan Johnson is definitely a bat-missing reliever at worst. And I think Chris Cortez is a total power arm. So I think, you've got Christian Moore, who is going to be an everyday player, but it seems like. And if you get 2 role players out of your first couple rounds, I think it's a successful draft. Would have loved to have seen Ryan Prager. I think Ryan Prager was a top 5 starting pitcher across college baseball this spring. Understandably, there's some NIL money that's in play. Guy wants to go win a national championship. I know this is I'm not an Angels fan. I'm just a journalist, so don't shoot the messenger here, that kind of thing. But, I understand the frustration of him not signing, but yeah, good on you, kid. Go make the same amount of money. Go win your national championship. He's a redshirt sophomore who's going to be junior age next year. More to him. Go get the financial setting. Go try and win. Sucks for the Angels, and I totally understand that. But Ryan Prager, I think, is a really, really fun arm and probably one of the best performers and best starters who would have been a starter. Upside maybe back end of the rotation, but still very good pitcher. Everyone else for the most part is a project, but I think there's a lot of fun projects to play with through the rest of the draft.
I was going to say we can move on from Prager. Yeah.
Little bitterness there, I'm sensing. All right,
just a little bit.
There's your draft follow-up stuff.
Come on, Marlon. You got the whole Marlon.
I was wondering earlier, Jeff, why does Taylor look different from the last time we met? And it's the beard. You got a full-on... You didn't have a beard the last time, did you?
Oh, wow, I guess I do. No, no, I don't... You know what? This is only 3-4 weeks. I didn't have it during the draft. So this is only a couple. So yeah, maybe a month old beard, something like that.
It'd take me like 4 months because it's terrible. I can't grow a beard.
See, that's the thing.
I can't either.
The white that you have here, right here, Chuck, I have the same white. It just hides a little different.
Yeah, but mine's in blotches. It just looks like ass. It's just terrible.
All right, so we've talked about the draft. We've talked about beards. And so, Chuck, you took a road trip this weekend to see the Rocket City Trash Pandas. Had some really good interviews with some of the players there. Weren't able to get Christian Moore because apparently the line to interview him stretched around the city there. But tell us about the trip, what you saw, who you talked to, and some of your observations that you took away.
So first interview was Samuel Addegheri. This kid was amazing, and we connected as soon as he came in because I told him about my mom's side of the family, 100% Italian, and then we started getting into that over there, and it was great. And then I specifically had questions just for him, aside from everybody else, because I wanted to make sure that we kind of got into that, and what were his favorite dishes growing up, and food, and the comparison between food from the motherland and American Italian food, and like Americans that love the Italian gangster mobster movies like The Godfather and The Goodfellas and, the show The Sopranos. I mean, are Italians into that? So we get into that and we get his answers on those things. And, and why he chose baseball over the primary sport in Italy, which is soccer. Right. And he goes on to talk about how his brother and his influence with that. And it was a great interview, and it's just a great kid. And, and we talked a little bit before and after, and then Kaden Dana came on. And
real quick, Chuck, did you talk to him about potentially being the first Italian-born pitcher since 1950?
I wish I would have got that on the interview. We talked after that on that, and he was super proud of potentially being that first guy since, what is it,
75 years almost.
Yeah, I mean, my gosh.
So if I can just jump in for half a second, Chuck.
Yeah.
So there is a little bit of a contest here. Is Chase Burns, although he grew up in Tennessee, was born in Italy. So there is a little bit of a battle between Samuel Aldegheri and Chase Burns on who will be the first Italian-born pitcher. Alex Liddy came up from 2011, 2013. He's from Italy. Before that, it was 1968 was the last Italian-born position player before Liddy. But it's been since 1950 that there's been a pitcher that was Italian-born in the majors. And, obviously Aldegheri is an Italian. He grew up in Italy or grew up in Europe, grew up playing in Europe and stuff. So it's a little different, but
it's different. Yeah.
But on paper, right? On paper, Chase Burns has a chance to be that guy, but also Samuel Addegheri. So it's really cool. I'd love that. That's a huge angle, and I'm glad you were able to talk to him individually.
Taylor, I don't know the story. Was Chase Burns, is his family from Italy, or was his father stationed there in the military?
I think it was a military stationary thing. Yeah.
That's my unconfirmed belief. I don't have any fact beyond that, but to what I know, I believe Chase Burns' father was stationed, and that's what I believe. I don't have a hard yes on that or not, but because he grew up in Tennessee from the time he was young, he was a Tennessee kid.
Okay.
Sorry,
but
Chuck.
Can we say first Italian-born Italian to make it to the big league? That's a little different, right? Okay.
Sure.
Whose father wasn't on shore leave and just with mom.
But let me just real quick, and we can move on. Kaden Dana was just blew my mind.
That dude is a mountain.
He is, and I had no expectations. because I had never met him before. I know Taylor has. And so he just came in. We were posted up, and he just rolls in, and he just slides right into a chair, a table right next to where I have the interview, the video camera and everything set up. He says, "Hey, how's it going?" And I was like, "Good, good." Hey, I'm Chuck Richter. Introduced myself, the website, and we just started shooting the shit even before the interview started. And we were just buddies talking about baseball. And I said, "Well, we're 3-4 minutes in. We should probably get this interview going." So I said, "Well, let's do it." And then did the interview. It was great. A lot of good responses. One of my favorites was, and it's kind of dumb. It's at the end when we're doing the lighter side, the lightning round, right, of questions. Favorite movie. And then he said, Troy. And then the light went on. I'm like, fuck, Achilles. You are Achilles. And then he said, I'll take it.
That's cool. You know what? That would be a cool nickname, man.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
We already have Thor. The hell with Thor, right? We got Achilles.
And who was he compared to as a teenager? It was Noah Syndergaard.
That's right.
So you got Thor and Achilles. That's wow.
Dude.
Look at you, Chuck.
So it was amazing, dude. And then the interview ended, and he slid right back across the table into the chair, and we start talking. And Taylor, I did talk to him about the distillery.
Oh yeah, there's a family owned distillery.
And you know what he said? He said, "Tell Taylor that I'll ship him some brews."
Really?
That's on rec. Yeah,
I'll shoot him at text. That's cool.
So he said, "Tell Taylor to reach out, and I'll ship him some brews." He will. His dad will. Yeah. For the record, guys, Caden is 20 years old. It's his dad's business. All right. It's not Caden's. All right.
So I got to just run in on this. When I talked to Caden a few months ago and did the story with him, and I'll shoot him a text, I found out he lives about 2.5 miles from my sister in New York.
Well, how fun.
Yeah. His house is on the same main street as my sister is. And it just blew my, I called her and I'm like, "Hey, do you know where," I won't give anything away, but "do you know where this building is?" And she said, "Yeah." And I said, "Kaden Dana lives across the street." And she's like, "Who's Kaden Dana?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, well." But no, he's a great kid. I'm going to run with the Achilles thing, Chuck. I love that. That is really a great name.
Yeah, absolutely. So great interviews. And of course, the next day, David Mershon, I already spoke to that. And then we got George Clawson. Good kid. Funny, quick story about George Clawson. I had already got out of my work clothes, which means my slacks and my, and my button-up shirt and, press credential ripped off, and put on an Angels hat and went undercover because I wanted to have a couple beers and a whiskey and put on some shorts and sandals. And I'm just, I wanted to get George Clawson's, first, his AA debut on video. So I'm just standing up there and I'm taking some video, and then this lady next to me, she was nervous. Come on, George. And then I'm like, "Yeah, you're rooting for George too? Let's go, George." Because yeah, I'm his mom. I'm like, "Oh." And so, in the first inning, he got an out. It was great. He got that first out. And then the first inning didn't go the way he wanted it to. He gave up a couple runs, and then I think 5 in total. But but you could tell she was nervous, and I was like, I need to get out of here. I need to give her space, But yeah, he shows good stuff. George was a good interview as well, and that's all going to be on the website here the next day or two.
Cool. Yeah, check all of these interviews out on AngelsWin.com or on our YouTube page, where many of you are watching this right now. So if you look down, you can see some of the other videos that we have, and all of these interviews will be there. While you're there, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It helps us out a lot, so we appreciate that. All right, gents. We were planning a short one for today. Any final topics or things that you guys want to discuss?
I wanted to ask Taylor, just his observations of the, the young core, with the Angels, the Ohapis, the Netos, the Schanuels, Joyce. Heck, you can include Soriano in that mix as well. And anybody else that comes top of mind as well, Taylor, that you want to talk about. Here we are. We got, 7 weeks left of the season. And so what are some things that you've seen in these guys a year later, and things that you've seen improvements on, and what to kind of look forward to maybe next year?
Yeah, I mean, when I did my season preview for the Angels at the Sporting Tribune, I had 3 goals for the club. It's, finish at 500. It didn't have to be over 500, but finish at 500. That's not going to happen. I think I said 300 games combined between Rendon and Trout, which would have been egregious, but wish it could have been 200 to 250 games between Trout and Rendon. Obviously, that didn't happen. Third thing, let the kids grow. Zach Neto, I don't think I ever had a question about Zach. Leg kick never bothered me. I always thought he was going to hit, thought he had sneaky power, I thought he was going to steal bases, and I thought he was going to be a really good shortstop. I think the shortstop play has been the most impressive. He has the ability to take over offensively and change the game on offense, but I think I was texting I won't say who, but a former player and broadcaster, and I said, he asked me about Neto when they drafted him. I said, this is a shortstop for the next 6-7 years of your franchise. And I said, that's, regardless of what he does, this is a franchise caliber shortstop to a degree. And if that's what you get, then you have to be very happy. If you missed out on anyone in the draft kind of thing, it doesn't matter who it is, you filled a hole that is very important. And I think Zach is starting to show that heavily. And big believer in Zach. He is going to be, I would say, what was the face of the franchise, by my opinion. Logan O'Hoppe has definitely taken that reign, which is fine because I'm a catcher guy and I love Logan. Logan's a great kid. Found out, no, that's another story for another time.
Oh, come on.
No, you can't do that. Let's go.
His personal life. I don't want to jump into his personal life, but a very, very close friend of his is... I'm not going to jump into that one. I'll just leave that one. I'm sorry, boys. Sorry for that one. No,
brutal.
He is...
brutal.
I will say this. He is dating a absolutely lovely, lovely woman. Very, very incredible woman who... I think is really going to make him happy. So I'll just leave it there. But great kid. I love Logan. I think he's shown everything that he's going to be, supposed to be. They projected him properly. His defense is improving as well. Nolan Schanuel's defense is improving, which wasn't an issue. But I think this kid, I was wrong. I did not believe in Nolan Schanuel. I was not when he was an amateur in the draft, and then we found out that the astigmatism, the corrective lenses, and I thought, I'm gonna, nod this way. Obviously, what he did last year was really impressive, and this is what I said: is I don't care what this kid does if he's well below average performer this year. The fact that he's playing first base on a regular basis at the major league level, a year removed from college, is really impressive just to start with. Now we're starting to see that bat turn around. The power is, I always said he's going to run into home runs. He's not a home run hitter. He's going to run into home runs. You're starting to see it more. I still don't know how hard he's ever going to hit the ball, but you're starting to see it. And his physical transformation was really impressive for me. When you're standing right next to him and seeing him up close, he is maneuvered muscle. I wouldn't say he's trimmed down because he has, but at the same time, that muscle that was down near his core has kind of moved to his shoulders. He looks really good. So I think his physical transformation and his 6 month, year and a half, 2 year development is really impressive at the major league level. You mentioned Jose Soriano. Blown away. Absolutely blown away. Did not think he was going to be able to throw strikes the way he did. That splinker was a great move by the Angels organization. They told me about that in the spring, and great move by the staff with the Angels on that. Ben Joyce.
Kochanowicz, too. I mean, since you're on that power sinker, look what he did against the Nationals this weekend.
Yeah, so last year in spring training, they lowered his arm slot. And actually, he picked up velocity while doing it. And it lets the changeup and slider play a little bit better because he doesn't have that great of a slider or a changeup. But he can use that sinker to kind of set up. And when Jack is on, you see it. He's a ground ball pitcher. He's not going to miss bats. He's a ground ball pitcher, and he was effective. What did he have? Like 80 pitches by the 8th inning or something like that? It was
crazy.
And that's Jack will show signs of that consistently In the minors, it's just, can he do it every other time out? Because when he's not, he throws too many strikes. They're not quality strikes. They're gutter pitches. They're going to get teed off on, hit around. You do want to trust your defense, and you do want to pitch to contact and be an old school pitcher. That's fine, but he's got to have a little bit more of a consistent strikes, consistent basis of what he's doing. But yeah, no, Jack is definitely a guy that has a chance to do some things. You mentioned Ben Joyce, which, talking about nicknames, I tried really hard to push a nickname on Ben Joyce, Lollapalooza, but Volunteer Fireman might be one of the greatest nicknames ever. That's a really good
I like
Volunteer
that.
Fireman is a great nickname. But yeah, Ben, it was another thing last spring when he was able to locate that right inside slider, backdoored a little bit on lefties. I thought that was really impressive. He's starting to show a little bit more. That splinker, again, is another thing that's just going to benefit him, gives him a third offering off of the breaking ball and off of 103 plus. That's an out pitch. I know people say it's flat, but it's still an out pitch at 103.
Oh, yeah.
But no, I think there's a foundation. I still think the Angels are multiple years out. I would say at least 2 years out. And that's with a healthy Mike Trout, and a Mike Trout that's not going to regress heavily, because he will regress at some point. I don't think he's going to regress heavily if he can stay on the field. So I think the Angels have a window for the playoffs in about 2 years. I think next year, let it be another growing year. Hope for a healthy Mike Trout. Hope for a healthy Anthony Rendon. But yeah, I think there's a foundation here of core players. Neto, Ohapi, Soriano. I know Chase Silseth is down, but Chase Silseth, Reed Detmers. I still believe that Reed Detmers is the best pitcher in the Angels' entire organization. I still believe that to this day, and I'm going to carry that until he's not. But I think once Reed Detmers gets something between the ears a little more level-headed, I think he has the potential. And Chuck, you know this. I never use the word ace. I never use it. It's a very select few that deserve that title. I think Reed Detmers he would be on the cusp of becoming an ace, and he was showing it for 6 months, from about this time last year to the start of this year, and then he fell apart. So I am a firm believer Reed Detmers is a huge part of this future. Just got to get it figured out. Nolan Schanuel, Christian Moore. I think there's definitely a foundation at every key spot. Maybe you do need an outfielder somewhere that's not Mike Trout and not Taylor Ward. But you know what? There is definitely a foundation here, and I think there's some work to be done.
Take it, Jeff.
I have a question for both of you. Have we seen Mike Trout play his last game in center field for the Angels? Do the Angels need to move him to a corner outfield position?
Go ahead, Chuck.
I think so. What I've seen from Mickey Moniak, and I'm not saying Mickey Moniak's a starting center fielder, next season, I think they just need to limit his aggressiveness out there, because he's just balls out on every play, right? Mm-hmm. Which is great, and that's why we love Mike Trout. But it's time to rein it back a little bit, right? Rein it in, and just understand that he's getting older. And as you get older, you need to limit yourself and put up some boundaries. You're not 20 years old anymore, but he can be an effective run-producing, solid left fielder. My gosh.
Yeah.
What do you think your take, Taylor?
I think Mike has earned the right to dictate a little bit of when that move comes. If Mike comes back healthy and says, I would like to continue playing in center field,
that's true.
I think Mike has earned that right. And I think he's confident and he knows his skill set. I think he's learning his body, because that was always the question, was how is his body going to transform with the size, right? Because he's fast. He has all the tools, and it's not that he's a chubby guy, anything like that, but he's a dude. He's a huge human being.
But he may take a page out of Torrey Hunter's book, right? Because remember, when the Angels had Peter Borges, Mike Trout, Torrey Hunter went to right field. And that's the first time he played right field in his entire career. Yeah. And then Mike Trout went to left field because of Peter Borges being just such a guy that's got incredible range in the outfield. So,
I think Mike also is going to do what's best for the team. if he thinks he's the best option for the team in center field, I think they should let him because he's earned that right. But if he also, I don't think Mike's a proud man. I think he is a proud man, but I don't think he's prideful to the point of saying I'm not surrendering center field or anything like that. Because he's humble, he's proud, but he's humble, right? He's the perfect blend of everything you want someone to be. He's an outstanding human being, but it's one of those things where Mike has earned this right to at least dictate a bit of when his last game will be in center field. To go or short-winded, Jeff, no, I don't think it's his last one. I think it's close to his last one.
Yeah. All right.
Last
That's
one
good.
for me, Jeff, just real quick.
Sure.
Here. We haven't talked about Joe Adell at all, right? And maybe I should have included him, and maybe it was unfair of me not to include him in the young core, because he's on pace to have a 2020 season here with really improved defense in the outfield and right field. And he's shown that he can be an above average right fielder now in the majors. What's your take on him? And real quick on Michael Stefanik, because we get a lot of people thinking that he should start at second base. And so that's it. And then we'll end this thing.
My dog's giving me the code too. Big old back off. My
dog.
It's fine. I think we've been saying it for a long time as we're waiting for Joe Adell to turn the corner and become a thing. 2020, he comes up. He's rushed. It's well known he's rushed. Joe was a guy that had nothing to learn in Double-A. He had nothing to learn. He was torching the ball. He had to cut down the strikeouts, walk a little bit more. And they gave him the time in Salt Lake. And you're just waiting for the adjustments to be made. You're waiting for the adjustments. It happens. I mean, I still think Jordan Adams is a guy that when he is 28 years old, 29 years old, could be a starter for a Major League Baseball team. It takes time with these tools. It takes time with adjustments. I knew it was going to take time with Joe when he came up. I thought it was immediate impact, and I've got to own that. I thought he was, I'm not going to say he was the number one prospect in baseball, but top 20 prospect in baseball was going to be an impactful player. It happens. You do have to let these guys get the reps, make the adjustments consistently. And this isn't the last time Joe's going to have to make adjustments. That's just part of baseball. So I think Joe is making the adjustments. I think he's simplified his game, which has been a huge part of what we need to do, what the Angels need to do with Joe. The attitude has never been an issue. This is one of the you talk about good human beings. Joe Adell is a great human being. So it's not an attitude issue. It's just get that concentration, get the adjustments down. And Joe's 25, 20, is he 25 yet?
Yeah.
It takes time, man. I mean, I know that's another thing with high schoolers. So he's been in the organization for 7 years at this point. So it takes time, and it's a tough thing because if this was a guy that was coming if it was Christian Moore, you're talking about a guy that's only just testing Rule 5 eligibility now. So it's a long, lengthy period. We've had a long adjustment time with Joe Adell to view him, and that's going to bring a lot of excess judgment. Joe, for a long time, did not look like a major leaguer. Didn't look like he was going to have a major league future, but when the adjustments are made, it's going to work. So, yeah, I think Joe does have a chance. Defensively, yeah, absolutely. I don't know what it was defensively early in his career. I really genuinely don't know what it was. Maybe it was lack of confidence in the field, but he's always been a good defender. He's always shown that he can do these things. It's just, it was a weird deal early in his career. Mikey Stefanik, kid finds the barrel, doesn't strike out, doesn't chase, doesn't miss. There's just not a lot of impact. So, can he hit enough to be a starter at second base? Absolutely he can. And his defense is improving at both third and second. You could platoon him. You could do all kinds of things with him. Starting-wise, I would right now. If you're going to hold Christian Moore down and do that, absolutely. Have Mikey Stefanik get the rest of the season at second base. I got no issues with that. But no, I mean, he's just a high-contact bat who knows what he's doing at the plate, and there's not a whole lot of power. It's pretty minimal power at this point. So, yeah, I think that, keep giving him a shot, but I think there's going to be better players that come through, is the way I would probably put it. He's fine. He's okay. He's right around average with the bat, but there's going to be guys that have more power, more impact on both sides of the ball.
Good.
There we go. Well, Taylor, again, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it. You can all find Taylor on X at Taylor Blake Ward. You can also find his writings for the Sporting Tribune. Sporting Tribune is at Sporting Trib on X. So thank you again for joining us. We appreciate it. Always good to have your insights on these young guys that are coming up. Chuck, it was good seeing you again as well. Thanks for sharing your road trip stories with us. Let's see. Next time, I think we might have Victor back. Victor's got a lot of stuff going on in life right now that he's a lot going on. So we'll leave it there, but we expect to have him back for the next episode.
Yep.
So for Chuck Richter, for Taylor Blake Ward, I am Jeff Stoddart. Thanks for listening to the AngelsWin Podcast, and good night.
Thanks for listening to the AngelsWin.com podcast with Chuck Richter and Jeff Stoddart. Until next time, go Halos.